The photograph was filed under a name that did not match the folder in a drawer that should have been empty, and when Mara pulled it free, the paper was warm. So, this is the Black Hollow Archive. I am Mara Voss. I keep the record. I want to talk to you about the river markers. Not the river itself. The Crale Run tributary has been dry for over 30 years, its channel a pale crease in the hillside west of the Punch Bowl Basin, barely visible from the logging road unless you know what you're looking at. I am talking about the markers placed along its banks before it was drained. Iron stakes, survey grade, stamped with sequences of numbers that do not correspond to any mapping system the county has ever used. There are 16 of them, according to a document I found this week in Cabinet 6, Drawer 4, a folder I had overlooked, or a folder that had not been there before. The document is a field report. 6 pages, typewritten on county issue buff paper dated September 1961, the same year the Crestfall Motor Lodge was poured, the same year the Civil Defense Tunnel schematics first drew Tunnel D as a dashed line east of Garner Street. The report is authored by a municipal surveyor named Owen Pryce. That name does not appear anywhere else in the archive. It does not appear in county employment rolls, in the 1960 or 1970 census records I have been able to access, or in the obituary files for Black Hollow that run from 1941 to 2003. Owen Pryce surveyed the Crale Run channel in September of 1961, filed a 6-page report, and then ceased to exist in any document I can find. His report describes 16 iron stakes placed at intervals he calls depth stations. The intervals are not equal. They follow a pattern he records but does not explain. 3 paces, 7 paces, 3 paces, 11, 3, 17. I have spent time with that sequence. It is not a standard surveying cadence. The numbers between the 3s are prime. I do not know what that means. I am telling you because it seems like the kind of detail that should be preserved. Each stake carries a 2-part stamp. The first part is a numeral, 1 through 16, in sequence. The second part Pryce describes as a glyph he could not identify, consistent in form across all 16 stakes, appearing to have been applied at manufacture rather than in the field. He sketched it in the margin of page 3. It is the same mark as the watermark in the residual deposit mapping document from Cabinet 3, Drawer 13, a vertical line bisected by a horizontal stroke. The watermark that moved. Pryce notes that at stakes 4, 9, and 13, his compass deviated exactly 40 degrees. He notes the deviation without alarm. The phrasing is clipped, professional, the kind of language a surveyor uses when he has been told to expect something and does not want to appear rattled by it. He had been briefed. He knew about the thermal anomaly and the compass behavior before he arrived at the channel, which means whoever commissioned his survey in September 1961 already had the information that would not be formally documented in the residual deposit mapping report until, as best I can date it, sometime in the mid-1970s. Somebody knew 15 years early. I want to tell you about the photograph now. It was paper-clipped to the inside back cover of the folder, which is why I almost missed it. A black and white print, approximately 4 inches by 5, undated. It shows the Crale Run channel from above, taken from elevation, which means a hillside vantage or a structure that no longer exists. The 16 stakes are visible, running in a shallow arc along the eastern bank, and at stake 9, the middle deviation point, there is a figure. The figure is standing in the channel bed, facing downstream, back to camera. They are dressed in work clothing consistent with the early 1960s. They are holding something at their side that Pryce does not mention in his field report. It is long and thin, and I have studied the print under good light, and I believe it is a dowsing rod, not a novelty item. A professionally weighted instrument, the kind used in serious subsurface location work with a pivot joint visible at the grip. The figure's shadow falls upstream. I have read that 3 times. I keep returning to it. The photograph was taken during daylight. The exposure is clear. The sky behind the ridge holds enough white to confirm midday sun. Midday sun in the Crale Run channel in September would cast a shadow downstream toward the punch bowl. This shadow runs the other direction, toward the source, toward the hill. I do not have an explanation for that. I am filing it as an anomaly and continuing. Ooh. Page 5 of the field report is where Pryce's professional register begins to loosen. The language is the same, typed, formal, county issue buff a hotch, but the sentences grow shorter. He records that at the conclusion of the staking survey, while completing his instrument check near stake 16, he heard what he describes as water moving beneath the channel bed. The Crale Run was flowing at the time of the survey. He is describing a sound from below the flow, below the substrate, below whatever lies above the ash. He describes it as rhythmic, not rushing, not the sound of an underground spring. He uses the word deliberate. The water moving beneath the channel moved deliberately, with a cadence he estimated at once every 4 seconds, and it originated from the direction of stake 9. Stake 9, the center point, the middle deviation, where the figure in the photograph was standing. The report's final page is a single paragraph. Pryce writes that he completed all 16 placements, that all stakes were verified plumb and seeded to specification, and that he is filing this report as his final survey assignment in Black Hollow. He requests, in the same neutral administrative register he has used for 5 pages, that no follow-up survey be assigned to him personally. He cites no reason. The request was apparently honored. He does not appear in the archive again. I went to the county map room this morning. I wanted to confirm the stake positions against the current survey grid to see if any of those 16 coordinates line up with something I already know. Stake 1, the eastern edge of the punch bowl drainage cut. Stake 9, the point in the channel bed directly above core 11 of the residual deposit mapping survey. The same core 11 that sits directly below the Garner Street Municipal Building. The same core where the survey team recorded the 40-degree compass deviation and the low bell tone. 16 stakes, 16 points above a single warm layer, placed in 1961, the year the tunnel was planned. Placed by a man who then refused any further assignment and vanished from the record entirely. I need to tell you the last thing before I close this entry. I returned the folder to cabinet 6, drawer 4 this afternoon. I noted the time, 4:47 p.m. I set the photograph on top of the field report, paperclip reattached, the figure with the upstream shadow facing down into the stack. I closed the drawer. I walked to the east corridor to check the utility closet. Not to open it, I am not ready to open it, but to check the floor seam in front of it, which I have been monitoring for temperature change since episode 4. The seam was cool. For the first time since I found it, the concrete in front of that closet door registered no heat at all. I pressed both palms flat against the floor and held them there. Cold, clean, even. I do not know if the warmth has withdrawn, or descended, or simply moved. I walked back to cabinet 6 to make a note in the folder margin. When I opened drawer 4, the photograph was no longer paper-clipped to the back cover. It was on top of the stack, facing up. The figure in the channel bed was no longer facing downstream. I closed the drawer. I am closing this entry. The archive is running its own catalog, and I am somewhere in the middle of it, not at the end. I do not believe I am at the end. But the distance between where I started and where I am standing now feels tonight very difficult to measure. The stakes are still out there in the dry channel bed of the Crale Run. 16 iron points in prime sequenced intervals, holding a shape in the ground that someone needed marked before the water disappeared. I think they were not measuring the channel. I think they were measuring it. This is Mara Voss, Black Hollow Archive. The record remains open.